In the quiet village of Nyoka, surrounded by dusty red roads and tall baobab trees, lived a girl named Lami. She was the only child of her parents, and the villagers often said she was as soft-hearted as the morning dew and as bright as the rising sun. Lami wasn't just kind, she was clever too. She loved learning, and every year she came home from school with the biggest prize. The elders would nod and smile, and her parents would beam with pride, saying, "Our daughter will go far." Everyone in Nyoka believed that Lami was destined for something greater. But fate, as it often does, had its own plan. As Lami grew older, the winds around her began to shift. A group of youth service members, Yande, Munta, Dozi, and Philo, arrived in Nyoka for their national assignment. They were new to the village, full of energy and laughter, and quickly became friends with the young people around. At first, their friendship with Lami seemed harmless. They would talk, laugh, and walk home together after school. But one dark evening, when the stars hid behind the clouds, something terrible happened. The four of them turned against her. They took from Lami what was not theirs to take. All of them. At once. But what they didn't know was that Lami was no ordinary girl, and what followed none of them could have imagined. You see, Lami had a dream, a big dream. She used to sit by her mother's feet and say, "Mama Baba, one day I will be a great banker. I will wear smart clothes, carry a shining bag, and walk into tall buildings in the city." Her parents would laugh gently and say, "Keep going, child. Your footsteps are blessed." Her world was full of light. She believed nothing could stop her from becoming who she was meant to be. But sometimes, even the strongest branches break in a storm. One afternoon, while Lami was sitting under the mango tree behind their hut, dreaming of skyscrapers and city life, something dreadful happened. Her parents had gone to the nearby village of Kaloya to visit a sick uncle. But on their way back, disaster struck. Their cart overturned on the rocky path, and they didn't survive. Just like that, her world crumbled. When the news reached Nyoka, it was as if the wind stopped blowing. The people mourned with her. They held a proper burial. There was singing. There were prayers. Everyone brought food and wrapped their arms around her, but no words could mend her shattered heart. Lami cried day and night. Her eyes turned dull, and her voice grew silent. The girl who once outshined the brightest stars in class could no longer focus. Before, her name was the first on every result sheet. Now she barely heard the teacher's voice. The lines in her books blurred, and her hands trembled when she tried to write. Her teachers noticed. They didn't scold her. They knew grief had swallowed her spirit. Her dream of being a banker faded like chalk in the rain. She asked herself again and again, "What's the point now? Who will I make proud?" Her heart became a hollow drum. Still, Lami was expected to go to school. In Nyoka, even if your heart was in pieces, children had to keep attending class. If she stopped, it would bring shame to her family name, even if her family was no longer there to speak for her. So she walked the red path to school every morning, though her feet dragged. She sat on the last bench staring at her notebooks, with blank eyes. Sometimes she would sit still for hours, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. She missed her parents. She missed the sound of her father's voice and the warmth of her mother's lap. Her dream now felt like a distant drumbeat from a festival she could no longer attend. She often wondered, how can I go to the big city when I have no one to wave goodbye to me? But life, like the river, keeps flowing even when the boat is broken. One morning, as the village roosters crowed and children rushed to school with chalk-stained fingers, Lami noticed something odd. Her classroom was decorated, with bright fabrics and strips of banana leaves. There was laughter everywhere, unusual for a school day. She sat down, puzzled. Then a friend leaned over and whispered, "You didn't hear? The old teachers are leaving, new teachers are coming, youth corps people." The class buzzed with chatter. "The new teachers are young and full of life," someone said. "Not like those grumpy old men with sticks." When the new corps members entered, they brought a breeze of joy. They wore clean white shirts with green caps and beamed with confidence. They asked the children questions in playful tones, joked about village life, and made the students laugh until their sides hurt. Everyone wanted to impress them. Hands shot up like arrows in the air. The classroom felt alive, but Lami stayed silent. She sat curled in her chair, her arms wrapped around her chest, eyes fixed on the dusty floor. Even the brightest room can't chase away the dark clouds inside a hurting heart. The new corps members, Yanda, Munta, Dozy, and Philo, took note of her silence, but none of them knew the storm that had already passed through her life, nor the one they themselves were about to bring. Because fate was not done with Lami yet, and the next chapter of her life was about to begin. While the other students laughed and chased after the energy of the new teachers, Lami remained still, like a leaf refusing to dance with the wind. Her classmates clapped and shouted with joy, but she sat quietly, eyes fixed on the same line in her book, her soul far away. Inside, her heart was a silent drum. Every cheer around her felt like thunder in her ears. But something was about to happen, something that would draw the attention of one corps member to her and change everything. Yanda, one of the youth teachers, was assigned to her class. He was young, full of life, with a voice that carried warmth. Each day he moved around the classroom with energy, turning dull lessons into stories, asking playful questions that made students laugh and learn without fear. But soon, Yanda noticed something. One child never smiled, never raised her hand, never answered. It was Lami. While the others leaned forward, eager to impress, Lami sat like a shadow at the edge of the light. Her fingers trembled. Her gaze stayed low. One afternoon, Yanda called on her. It was a simple question, one any student could answer. But Lami froze. Her mind went blank, like a chalkboard wiped clean. The class burst into laughter. "She's the dullest in the room," one boy shouted. The laughter grew louder, bouncing off the walls sharp as stones. Lami's cheeks burned red. Her lips trembled. Then her eyes filled, and tears slipped down her face before she could stop them. Yanda's smile vanished. He raised a hand, silencing the room. The laughter faded. He looked at Lami with quiet concern, and after the lesson, he gently asked her to stay behind. When the classroom emptied, Yanda knelt by her desk. "Lami," he said softly, "why do you carry so much sadness? Why don't you speak in class?" Lami hesitated. Her throat was tight, but slowly her story poured out. She told him about the accident, about her parents, about the dreams that once soared like birds and now lay broken. As she spoke, her voice cracked. Tears flowed. Yanda listened, heart heavy. When she finished, he looked into her eyes and said, "Lami, I'm sorry. No one should carry such pain alone. But I see the light in you. It hasn't gone out. We will bring it back." Lami sniffed and nodded. From that day, she began to visit Yanda's hut in the evenings. He helped her catch up with lessons, slowly piecing her confidence back together like a clay pot being mended. Each evening, she sat on a stool while he taught her with patience. "You can do it, Lami," he would say, smiling. "You're smart. Just keep trying." Little by little, Lami improved. She began to answer questions again, her voice returned, her eyes no longer looked like a sky without stars. Sometimes Yanda would bring her roasted ground nuts or fresh bread. He knew she had no one. He gave her small money to buy soap or snacks. Lami began to feel safe around him. Her smile returned. Not all at once, but like the first green leaf after a dry season. One night, as they studied by lantern light, Lami looked up and said, "Sir Yanda, I still want to go to the city. I still want to be a banker." He smiled, his eyes soft. "You will, Lami. You are strong. Just keep walking your path." But while Yanda guided her gently, something darker began to stir. Munta, Dozy, and Philo, the other corps members, began to whisper among themselves. They noticed Lami, how she smiled more, how often she visited Yanda's hut. They watched her with greedy eyes. One evening, as they sat under the palm tree, Philo said, "That Lami girl, She's growing into a fine woman, Dozy smirked. And always in Yande's place. You think he's already having his share? Munta leaned in. If he is, why not us too? We could all taste. Just once. Their laughter was low and wicked. That night, as the moon climbed the sky, they waited outside Yande's hut. When he stepped out to fetch water, they approached. Brother Yande, Munta said with a sly grin. You and that village girl, Lami, you're spending a lot of time together. She's beautiful, added Dozy. Always coming to your place. Share her with us. Just once. Yande's face darkened, his fists clenched. What did you say? He asked, voice low and shaking. She's just a village girl, Philo said. Why keep her for yourself? Yande stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. Lami is a child who suffered. She comes here to study, nothing more. But they laughed. They didn't believe him, and worse, they weren't done yet. Oh, come on, Yande, Munta said with a wicked grin. Don't pretend with us. Why else would she keep coming to your place, eh? Dozy added, We're not fools. We just want to turn. You can't keep her to yourself. Yande's face darkened. His chest rose and fell as he clenched his fists. Then, in a voice that cracked the silence like thunder, he shouted, I said no! The fire in his voice made even the birds go quiet. You will leave that girl alone. She's already suffered more than any child should, and I will not stand by and watch you harm her. The others scoffed. They laughed, thinking he was only pretending to be noble. In their eyes, Yande was just hiding his own selfish pleasures. They believed he wanted Lami all to himself. But Yande's heart was nothing like theirs. He saw Lami not as a girl to be used, but as a broken soul, like a little sister, worthy of kindness, worthy of protection. As they walked away, still chuckling, and whispering like snakes in the grass, Yande stood there alone, his heart heavy with dread. He could feel it. Trouble was coming. And he feared that no matter how tightly he stood guard, he might not be able to protect her from the wolves. From that day forward, he kept a closer watch. But fate, cruel as ever, had its own plans. One quiet afternoon, Lami came, as usual, to his home for her lessons. Books in hand, a hopeful smile on her face, but Yande wasn't there. He had been urgently called away to another village, an emergency. He left quickly, unaware that his absence would open the door for something evil. When Lami knocked, the door was opened not by Yande, but by the others, Munta, Dozy, and Philo. Their faces wore false kindness. They smiled and said, He's just gone to the market. Come in and wait. He'll be back soon. Lami hesitated, but they were his friends. She had no reason to doubt them. She stepped inside. The moment she sat down, the air shifted. The door closed behind her. The three men surrounded her. Their smiles faded, revealing what hid behind them. Something dark. Something wicked. Before Lami could understand, they grabbed her. She tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. Like a stone, they pinned her down, one by one. No one heard her cries. No one came to stop them. The pain was deep. The betrayal deeper. When they were done, they left her there, body bruised, heart shattered, her trust broken beyond repair. They walked away laughing, proud of what they had done, never looking back. Lami lay still for a long time. Her body ached, but it was her soul that screamed. Everything inside her had turned to ash. She had trusted them, and now they had taken everything. Yande wasn't there. He didn't know. He couldn't protect her, and now it was too late. The three, Munta, Dozy, and Philo, believed they had gotten away with their sin. But oh, how wrong they were. In the days that followed, Lami did not speak. She barely ate. She wandered through the village like a ghost. But worse than the pain was what came after, the whispers. Some girls, jealous of her connection to Yande, began to spread lies. She's been sleeping with all the core members, one said. That's why she goes there every day, another added. The rumors spread like fire in dry grass. Soon the village turned against her. People pointed when she passed. Elders shook their heads. Mothers pulled their daughters away. They believed the lies. They forgot the bright girl she once was. Lami felt the shame like a mountain crushing her chest. Her feet could no longer carry her through the village paths without feeling the weight of every eye and every whisper. One night, she made a decision. She packed what little she had, and she ran. She didn't look back. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't stay. Not in Nyoka. Not among those who now saw her as dirt. She thought she had escaped the worst. But fate was not done with this story. After the core members finished their service, Munta, Dozy, and Philo returned to the city. They moved on as if nothing had happened. They found jobs, new friends, new lives, but evil never sleeps quietly. The gods had seen what they did, and justice, silent, slow, but certain, was already on its way. Doctors examined Philo, but no one could explain what was happening to him. His body weakened by the day. No medicine helped. No prayer eased his pain. He began to feel as though his very soul was being drained. Then came Dozy's turn. Without warning, tragedy crashed into his life like a falling tree, a single accident, and he lost them all. His parents, his sisters, his younger brother, gone in one day. Dozy's screams echoed into the night. He couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't live. His world shattered into dust. One by one, the three men, Munta, Philo, and Dozy, found their lives falling apart. Misfortune gripped them like a snake around the neck. They were drowning in sorrow and had no idea why. "We haven't done anything wrong," Munta said again and again, but the pain never left. Desperate for answers, they sought out the one man known to speak with the spirit world, Baba Nyoro, the seer of Karufi Hills. They traveled across dry plains, climbed rocky paths, and arrived at the old man's compound with heavy hearts. There, in the center of a smoky hut filled with the scent of burning herbs and earth, sat Baba Nyoro, his eyes closed, a strange calm around him. They told him everything, how their lives had fallen apart, how curses seemed to follow them. "Why?" they cried. "What did we do to deserve this?" The seer listened. He did not speak until the last word left their lips. Then, he opened his eyes, deep, dark, and ancient. "This," he said, "is not misfortune." His voice was low and clear, like thunder before the storm. "This is judgment." The three men stared at him in disbelief. "You angered the spirits," Baba Nyoro continued. "You brought shame upon yourselves. You hurt someone, deeply. And now the ancestors rise to demand justice." Confused, Munta asked, "Who did we wrong? We don't understand." The seer shook his head slowly. "Think back, there was a girl. Her name was Lami." Their eyes widened. The air in the hut felt colder now. "The girl you tricked, the one you harmed." Her pain reached the spirit realm. And her parents, now in the land of the dead, cry out for justice. They will not rest. Not until you are held accountable. The men sat frozen. At first they couldn't even remember. So many faces. So many days. But the name began to echo in their ears. Lami, the quiet one. The girl who came to Yanda's home for lessons. The one they had. A heavy silence fell over the room. Baba Nyoro's voice cut through it. "Your suffering is not by chance," he said. "It is the result of your wickedness. The spirits have not forgotten, the earth remembers." The men's faces turned pale. The weight of their actions returned like a flood. "She was just a girl," Munta whispered, as if saying it out loud could undo what they had done. Baba Nyoro stood. "You must find her," he said. "Only she can forgive you. Only then will the spirits rest. If she refuses, your punishment will grow. It will follow your children. Your names will be cursed." Their hearts pounded. Panic set in. But where is she? Dozy asked. We haven't seen her since that time. Go, back, the seer said, to the place where it all began, to Nyoka. With fear twisting in their chests, the three men bowed in silence. They knew now. They had no choice. If they wished to live, if they wished for peace, they had to find the girl they destroyed. They left that night traveling under moonlight, hearts weighed down by guilt. As they entered Nyoka once more, the village looked just the same. Dusty roads, worn clay huts, the scent of roasted yams. Children played near the riverbank. But something had changed. The air was heavier. It was as if the land itself remembered what they had done. The villagers stared as the three returned, unsure of why they had come. The men wasted no time. They asked everyone they could find. Do you remember a girl named Lamy? Philo asked, his voice dry. She used to visit the youth corps teacher's house, Dozy added. An old man sitting by a tree looked up and said, Ah, Lamy, the quiet one. Yes, we remember her. The men leaned in. Where is she now? The old man's face fell. No one knows. She left. After the shame, after the whispers, she was never seen again. They went from home to home, speaking to those who once knew her. The answer was always the same. She disappeared. They said she ran away. No one has heard from her in years. The shame that chased her had chased her out of Nyoka, and now she was gone. The more the men searched, the more desperate they became. The village of Nyoka gave no answers, no direction. It was as if Lamy had taken all their hopes with her when she left. The whispers of her name had faded like a song the wind no longer remembered. Just as they were ready to give up, an old voice called out from the past. An elderly woman who lived near the old Corps lodge had been watching the men go door to door, their faces darkening with every no they received. She stood in her doorway, leaning on her cane, and said gently, You will not find her here. The men turned quickly. What do you mean? Asked Dozy, his voice dry with panic. She left, the woman replied, eyes clouded with memory. After the shame, after the gossip, the whole village turned against her. She couldn't take it. One morning she packed her load and vanished. No one has seen her since. The guilt that lived in the men's chests grew heavier, pressing, like stones. They had hoped that returning to Nyoka would help them begin to make things right. But now it seemed Lamy was lost to them, forever. Do you know where she went? Munta asked, his voice trembling. The old woman shook her head. No one does. She told no one. She just disappeared, like a shadow swallowed by night. There was nothing left for them in the village. Empty-handed and hearts weighed down, they returned to the wise man of Karufi Hills. Baba Nyoro sat silently as they told him all that had happened. When they finished, he did not look surprised. You must not stop now, he said firmly. The spirits will not rest until Lamy speaks her forgiveness. If she is not here, then go beyond. The wind that carries the curse will not stop at the village gates. The men looked at one another, lost. Where else can we go? Philo asked. She could be anywhere. But Baba Nyoro's voice came again, low and sharp like the blade of truth. Think, he said. Was there anyone close to her? A protector? A friend? Someone who might know where she ran to? Their brows furrowed. Their minds raced. And then, like thunder breaking in the sky, it struck them all at once. Yanda, whispered Munta. The Corps member who was always kind to her. The one she trusted most. Yes, added Dozy. He helped her with her studies. He protected her. He was different from us. Without another word, the three turned and began their journey. They left the hills and entered the city, asking questions, following faint trails like hunters tracking an old scent. It wasn't easy, but guilt has a way of driving even the laziest man to move fast. Eventually, they stood in front of a quiet compound, a simple home with a weathered door and a dusty step. Yanda opened the door. His face had aged, lines etched from experience and silence. But his eyes were the same. He stared at them, confused. "What are you doing here?" But before he could say another word, all three men dropped to their knees. "Please, Yanda," Philo said, voice cracking. "We did something we now regret more than anything. We need to find Lami. We must beg her for forgiveness. Our lives are cursed." Yande's face darkened. His jaw clenched. He had always feared that something terrible had happened to Lami. But now the truth was before him, raw and ugly. "You hurt her," he said, almost to himself. "You betrayed her when she trusted you." The men bowed their heads. Tears filled their eyes. The weight of their sins was choking them. "We know," Dozy whispered. "We have suffered. We will suffer more if she does not forgive us. Please, if you know where she is." Yande stared at them in silence. Then, after a long pause, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. "There is something you must see." They entered slowly. The home was simple, modest, filled with silence. And in the corner of the room, sitting on a mat, her hands gently resting on her belly, was Lami, heavily pregnant, eyes distant, quiet as the wind before a storm. The men froze. Their mouths could not form words. Their knees buckled again, the chains of guilt wrapped tighter around them. Yanda watched their faces twist with horror. His voice came low and filled with rage. "You did this," he said. The room felt like it might explode from the weight of his fury. "I knew something was wrong when she vanished, but I never imagined my own brothers." The three men collapsed, fully now, crawling forward, weeping. "Lami," Munta whispered. Please forgive us." Tears streamed down their faces as they dropped to their knees, begging like broken men before the girl they had destroyed. "We didn't know it would come to this," Munta cried, his voice cracked and trembling. "We've been cursed ever since, Yande," Dozy sobbed. "Everything in our lives has fallen apart. The seer told us only Lami can set us free." The room was heavy with pain, but Lami said nothing. Her eyes, cold and distant, remained fixed on the floor. Their pleas filled the room like wind through hollow trees, loud but empty. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, she raised her head. Her voice was sharp like a blade drawn in the night. "You think you deserve forgiveness?" she asked. "After what you did to me?" The men froze. "You ruined my life, stole my peace. You left me bleeding, broken and alone. And now you come asking for mercy?" Silence dropped like a stone into a still pond. The men's hearts sank deeper. They knew they had no right to ask for her kindness, but they had no other path. The spirits had made it clear. Only Lami could lift the curse. Yanda stood beside her, his jaw tight, his anger still burning. But he looked at her and his voice softened. "Lami," he said gently, "I know what they did can never be undone. I carry the pain of it too. But I also know this. Holding on to their wickedness will only keep your heart heavy. Letting go might give you peace." Lami's hands rested on her swollen belly. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly. She had carried this weight for so long. Grief, shame, silence. She had run. She had hidden. She had tried to forget. But now, she had new life growing inside her, and she knew this was no longer just about the past. It was about the future. She opened her eyes, steady now, strong. "I will forgive you," she said at last. Her voice was calm, but her gaze sharp as flint. "But there is a price." The men lifted their heads, hope flickering in their tear-filled eyes. "Anything," Philo whispered. "Anything, Lami. Please." "I forgive you," she said slowly. "But none of you will ever have children. That is the price." Their eyes widened. "You will never know what it means to love a child, to protect them, to watch them grow. Because you took that from me. You stole the life I was meant to have. The men wept openly now, but they nodded. They had no right to argue, no right to bargain. Thank you, Munta said, choking on his own voice. Thank you for sparing us at all. Yanda stood quietly, beside Lami, his heart torn by the pain in the room but filled with quiet relief. Lami had chosen a path forward. The three men left the house in silence, the curse lifted, but a different kind of burden now rested on their shoulders. In the Chiu, months that followed, Lami gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Yande stood beside her every step of the way, his hands steady, his love unwavering. With his support, Lami returned to school. Her feet once again touched the path of her dream. She studied hard. She carried books in one hand and her baby in the other, and in time, she became the banker she had always dreamed of being. She wore the smart clothes. She walked into tall buildings. Her name became known not for her past, but for her strength. Through fire, she had risen, and through pain, she had become unstoppable. As for the three men, they lived on, but their homes remained silent. No child's laughter, no tiny hands to hold, no future generation to carry their names. That was the price of their wickedness, and it would echo through their lives forever.